The stars outside the ship were silent, cold, unmoving. Cadet Mira stared through the frost-covered window of the Resolute. The lights had been out for over 30 minutes. There was no hum of the engines, no soft voice of the ship's AI, no signal. From command, just silence. The emergency lights had died 10 minutes ago. The only thing that still blinked was the small red light above the escape pod. And inside that pod, Commander Hal lay still barely breathing. Myra's gloved hand shook as she tapped the control screen again. Nothing. The system was frozen literally. A thin layer of ice was forming over every panel, every wall, even. Her suit, she whispered. Come on, restart, please. But nothing changed. Mira turned toward the escape pod. The tiny window showed Commander Hal slumped inside, his helmet cracked from the impact. The pod's oxygen system had been hit. First, life support was gone. The screen above him flashed one chilling message. Oxygen remaining, 56 seconds. No. Mira's breath fogged inside her helmet. They had been on a routine scout mission, charting dead moons in the outer rim. The area was empty space, silent and forgotten. But halfway through their sweep, something unseen had hit them. It wasn't a missile. It wasn't a beam. It was a pulse. A wave of invisible energy that disabled everything. Shields, power, engines. Life support. Only 2 people survived the hit. Mira, a fresh academy cadet on her first real patrol. And Commander Hal, wounded, unconscious, trapped. Mira had tried to send a distress call. She had tried everything. But the ship was dying. And so was Hal. Her heart pounded hard in her chest. She couldn't feel her fingers anymore. The temperature had dropped below freezing inside the suit. But she couldn't think about herself. She had less than 1 minute to save her commander. She looked at the emergency access panel. Behind it was the old backup system, the one from before the ship had AI control. It was only for serious failures. Academy lectures said never to touch it without supervision. But this wasn't a test. Mira ripped off the cover. Her hands moved. Fast, though she barely felt them now. Wires cracked from the cold. The core was stuck. It needed a restart. A full reset. That meant crawling into the maintenance shaft and flipping the manual override. She stared at the narrow opening. Ice covered its sides. It was a tight crawl. One wrong move and she could get stuck inside. But there was no time. Mira pulled herself. In the shaft was narrow and black. Her helmet light flickered. Ice crunched under her knees. Sparks from damaged wires lit the walls. One cut in her suit, and she'd freeze. The commander's words echoed in her mind. Leadership isn't about rank. It's about action. She pushed forward. Every breath became harder. Every second, colder. She reached the core junction. It was covered in frost. Mira wiped it with her sleeve. The override switch was jammed. She pulled hard, fingers slipping. Nothing. She screamed and slammed her fist against it. A snap. Then a spark. The ship shook slightly. For a second she thought she broke it. But then light. One hallway lit up. Just one. It was the one leading to the escape pod. She backed out quickly, gasping. Her visor fogged as her breath grew rapid. Come. Hold on. Mira ran through the lit hallway. Her boots echoed against the metal floor. Steam hissed from broken vents. The door to the pod was halfway open. She squeezed through. Commander Hal wasn't moving. Commander! She shouted, dropping to her knees. She pressed her ear to his chest. No breath. No, don't you die now. Not like this. She opened the med kit on the wall. There was one emergency stim injector left. Mira jabbed it into his neck. The green light blinked once, twice. Then Hal's chest rose. He coughed. His eyes fluttered open. Mira. His voice was weak. You're okay, she whispered. You're gonna be okay. He looked around slowly. What happened? We got hit. The whole ship froze. You were dying. I restored power. To one hallway, his hand reached for hers. You did good, Cadet, but his head slumped again, still breathing. Just unconscious. Mira lifted him from the pod. He was heavy. Blood stained his uniform. She dragged him down the hallway toward the med bay. It was barely functional. The auto-surgery table flickered on, enough to stabilize him. She dropped beside him. Exhausted, a soft beep came from the terminal. Her tired eyes turned to it. Incoming. Signal, unknown object approaching. Her breath caught. What now? The screen changed. Alien symbols began to scroll. She didn't recognize them. The translator struggled. Words appeared. Salvage claim. Target damaged. Vessel. Mira's stomach turned. They weren't rescuers. They were scavengers. She looked down at Commander Hal. He couldn't fight. He could barely breathe. It was just her now. Alone. She got up and checked the security feeds. A small ship was docking. 3 figures appeared on the screen, tall, thin, wearing strange suits. They didn't carry help kits. They carried cutting tools. They think we're dead, Mira whispered. She ran back to the control room and opened the life sign system. With shaky fingers, she redirected life readings to a far hallway, one that had already vented to space. Then she shut the doors behind the intruders the moment they entered. The screen flickered. Again, intruders contained. Temporary hold. Her breath slowed, but not for long. One alien pulled out a tool, started cutting through the door, of course. Mira whispered. She grabbed a shock lance from the weapons locker. It wasn't much, not against full-grown scavengers. But it was better than nothing. She moved silently through the halls, shadows flickering beside her. The metal floor felt colder now. The ship groaned with pressure shifts. Ice cracked above her head. The sound of a door falling. One intruder stepped through. Mira waited. She pressed her body against the wall, heart pounding. The figure passed. She lunged, stabbed the lance into its back. Electricity buzzed. The alien dropped, but the others heard the noise. Alarms blared. The ship's systems were waking up. Too slow. She ran, ducking around corners. Footsteps behind her. She reached engineering. Locked the door. They started cutting it open. Mira looked around. For anything. A trap. A plan. Something. The door sparked. Then a loud blast echoed behind her. Commander Hal stood there. Pale, weak, but standing. He held a plasma pistol in one hand. You're not dying alone, Cadet. Mira blinked in shock. How are you even standing? Painkillers. Lots of them. The door burst open. 2 scavengers stepped in. Hal fired once. Mira struck with the lance. Together, they pushed the attackers back. The intruders, wounded, ran. Mira sealed the door again. Hal dropped against the wall, gasping. You everything right. I just didn't want to die. That's where leadership starts, he said, closing his eyes. Mira walked to the comms. The signal was weak, but working. She pressed the beacon switch. Mayday. This is Cadet Mira of the Resolute. We are under attack. Commander alive. Requesting urgent evac. The message repeated. She slumped down beside Hal. They had survived. But in the stars above, something still watched them. Mira's hand trembled as she stared at the emergency override switch. It was old, rusted, half covered in frost. And if she pulled it, the ship's core would reboot manually without AI control. Her breath echoed in her helmet. Time was running out. Power was failing fast. Commander Hal was alive, but barely. The scavengers were already inside the ship. She whispered to herself, if I pull this and something goes wrong, the whole ship could blow. But if she did nothing, they'd both die. A memory came to her. Her first training day at the academy. Commander Hal stood at the front of the room, eyes sharp, voice steady. Out here in the dark, he said, you don't always have time to ask for orders. Sometimes you only have a second. and the wrong decision might kill everyone. But the right one might save them all. She looked down at the switch. It was time to choose. She pulled it. Sparks burst from the wall. A loud hum filled the corridor. Lights flickered, then glowed dimly. One after another, sections of the ship lit up. The Resolute stirred like a beast waking from deep sleep. Mira fell back, gasping. It worked. Core online. A cold voice echoed from the hallway speakers. Warning, unauthorized restart detected. Primary systems unstable. Power at 23%. She stood up quickly. I don't care. Just give me life support and sensors. The AI paused. Systems rerouted. Oxygen hissed from broken vents. Warmth returned to her suit. She raced toward the medbay. Commander Hal was still unconscious. The autosurgeon had kept him alive, but his vitals were low. He needed real help soon. Hang in there, she said softly, placing her hand on his. Suddenly, a sharp beep came from the wall panel. Life form detected outside medbay door. Mira's eyes widened. The scavengers had found them. She backed away, heart racing. No weapons here, she muttered. No cover. Her mind raced. Then she saw a small service door beside the supply locker. She opened it and slipped inside, crouching. In darkness. The door opened. Heavy steps entered the medbay. Two aliens. Tall, thin, with gray armor and glowing red visors. They spoke in a strange, buzzing language. One of them walked over to Commander Hal. He tilted his head, scanning the human body. Don't touch him, Mira whispered under her breath. But she had no weapon. Then the second scavenger picked up a med scanner. He started pressing buttons randomly, as if testing the tech. The machine sparked and beeped in protest. Mira looked around. Above her, a fire suppression valve. She pulled her multi-tool from her belt. Carefully, she extended the hook and reached for the valve. Click. A burst of freezing gas sprayed from the ceiling. The scavengers cried out, waving their arms. Disoriented. Mira sprang out of hiding, tackled one to the floor, and grabbed his tool. He struggled, but she slammed the handle into his visor. Glass cracked. The red light went out. The second one swung wildly at her. She ducked, kicked him backward, then pressed the tool's energy spike into his chest. Zap. He collapsed. Her arms shook. She hadn't even noticed she was crying. System alert, the AI voice said. Unauthorized access halted. Security breach contained. Mira dropped the tool. They found us. They'll keep coming. She checked Commander Hal's vitals. Still stable. Still alive. But she couldn't stay in the med bay. If they came again, they wouldn't make the same mistake. She activated a hover sled from the wall panel and carefully moved Hal's body onto it. Sorry, sir, she whispered. But I'm moving you. She pushed the sled through the hall, keeping close to the wall, her ears sharp for any sound. The ship groaned around her. Cold metal creaked like bones snapping under pressure. The damage was deep. The scavengers hadn't just boarded. They were taking the ship apart. Lights flickered. Another alarm rang out. Warning, external hull breach deck. 7. They were cutting their way through the outer walls. Mira took the sled into a side chamber near the old crew barracks. It was small and hidden. The emergency doors still worked. She placed Commander Hal gently on a bunk and sealed the door. I'll be back, she said. I promise. She turned to leave but stopped. What if she didn't make it back? She looked at his calm, sleeping face. Pale, tired, but peaceful. He had given her a chance, taught her everything, believed in her when no one else had. She pulled a small data chip from her suit pocket. It held her final message. Just in case, she placed it beside him and whispered, "If I don't return, let them know I tried." Then she stepped back into the hall. This time, she wasn't just running. She had a plan. The scavengers were breaking the ship apart to get the core. But Mira knew the Resolute better than they did. She had studied every system, every weak point, every path. She made her way to engineering. The main door was open. Inside, 3 scavengers surrounded the fusion core, scanning its structure and planting tools. One of them looked up. 2. Late. Mira activated the backup security door behind them. A thick metal wall slammed shut, trapping them inside. They turned and screamed, slamming their fists against the barrier. "Good luck with that," she said. She opened the side panel and rerouted pressure from the coolant tanks. In seconds, the chamber dropped to sub-zero temperatures. Inside, the scavengers. "Frozen place. Cryo lockdown complete," the AI reported. "Intruders neutralized." Mira smiled weakly, but her legs wobbled. She was out of breath. Her side burned. She looked down and saw her suit had torn. A small piece of shrapnel had cut her side during the fight. Blood soaked into the lining. "No," she whispered. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard. She couldn't collapse now, not when she was so close. She limped back to the medbay only to find it empty. "Commander?" she called, panic rising. Then the door behind her opened. Commander Hal stood there, holding the data chip. He looked at her with tired but sharp eyes. "You left a goodbye message," he said. She nodded, embarrassed. "You didn't need to," he said softly. "You already saved me." Mira tried to smile, but her knees gave out. He rushed forward, catching her. "Easy," he said. "You're hurt." She shook her head. "I locked them out. We're safe for now." He looked at her. "Wound, we'll get you patched up." "But power is low," she said. "We only have one chance to send a message." Commander Hal looked at the control panel. He pressed the emergency beacon. "This is Commander Hal Rourke," he said. "The Resolute is under attack. We have survivors. We need evac. Sending coordinates now." He looked back at her. "Help is coming." Myra's eyes closed for a moment. Relief washed over her. She had made the decision. She had taken the risk. And it had worked. Now she could rest. But not for long. Somewhere in the shadows of deep space, another ship stirred. It had received the same pulse that hit the Resolute. But this one was larger, older. Watching, its systems blinked slowly, and on its black metal hull, one symbol glowed. "They're awake." Mira stood over the main console in the control room, her hands still stained with dried blood and grease. The lights above her flickered weakly, barely holding on. Behind her, Commander Hal lay resting in a chair, breathing slowly, his face pale but alive. The emergency beacon had been sent, but the signal was weak. They couldn't be sure anyone had heard it. "Not yet. Power's dropping fast," Mira muttered, staring at the numbers blinking red on the screen. 20%. Now 15. The ship's core was still online, but unstable. When she had triggered the emergency override earlier, she hadn't fixed it, only delayed the failure. She knew that. Everyone at the academy knew the emergency system could only hold for a short time. Now the reactor was overheating on one side and frozen solid on the other. If it shut down completely, they'd lose everything. Air, heat, lights, life. She turned to Hal. "I have to go to the core chamber," she said. He opened one eye slowly. "It's too dangerous. The radiation, the cold. You've already done." "Enough. I haven't done enough," she replied, her voice quiet but steady. "Not if we die waiting for help that might not come." Hal tried to sit up, but pain flashed across his face. "You need to stay here," she told him. "Let me try. You said it yourself, leadership is about doing the right thing, not waiting for orders." He gave a weak smile. "That's not fair. I only say that when I'm not the one lying half dead in a chair." She smiled too, just a little, then turned serious again. "If I don't fix the core," she said, "we lose all power in 30 minutes. That includes life support. And the beacon. No one's coming if they can't hear us." Hal didn't argue after that. He nodded once. "Take a backup stim," he said. And Mira, come back alive. She grabbed her toolkit, an old stim injector, and the insulated shield cloak used for high radiation zones. It was bulky, awkward, and burned energy fast, but it would give her just enough time to work, maybe, as she stepped into the service shaft. The cold bit into her skin like knives. Ice had returned. The warmth from earlier was gone, fading with the ship's failing systems. She crawled slowly, each movement careful. Sparks snapped from exposed wires above her. Her boots crunched against frozen metal. Her breath fogged inside. Her helmet. Finally, she reached the fusion core chamber. It was a nightmare. The room was dark, except for a sick green glow from the flickering power coils. The core itself pulsed like a broken heartlight, stuttering, fading. Half the chamber was iced over. The other half was steaming, venting excess heat from broken regulators. The floor was slick, dangerous. Ship core status? Mira called. Out. The I voice replied coldly. Core stability. 15%. Reactor balance compromised. Failure imminent. Can it be rerouted manually? She asked. Manual reroute possible, it replied. Risk of failure, high. Risk of containment. Breach, extreme. Mira's hand tightened around her tools. Do it anyway, she said. Show me the path. A set of red lights blinked on the far side of the chamber, behind a wall of thick steam and exposed wires. That was where she had to go. She moved slowly. Crouching, her shield cloak absorbing bursts of heat. The radiation alarm on her belt ticked faster as she approached. One of the panels sparked. Violently as she touched it, she jumped back. Come on. She whispered. With shaking hands, she used the fusion splicer tool to crack the panel open. The core's control wires were inside twisted and half melted. She needed to reroute the energy flow from the damaged coolant line into the secondary chamber. That would relieve the pressure and buy them time, but one wrong connection could blow the whole system. She took a breath and started cutting wires. Blue sparks danced in the air. Her suit sensors screamed warnings. The temperature spiked, then dropped again. Ice formed on her visor, then melted. Her heart pounded louder than the warning tones in her ears. Rerouting sequence initiated. The I announced. A green light blinked above her. Then a red one. Pressure building in coolant loop 3, the I warned. System destabilizing. No. No, Mira said, fingers flying over the panel. Come on, stabilize. She adjusted the flow, moved the ground wire, and clamped a loose fuse. The reactor groaned. The floor shook. A pipe behind her burst, spraying coolant across the room. She flinched but held her place. Then silenced. A soft, low hum. Core stability restored, the AI said. Power at 38%. Systems rebalancing. She stared at the panel, barely breathing. She had done it. Manual override complete. The AI continued. Ship energy stabilized. Beacon transmission strength increased to 70%. Mira let out a long, shaky breath. She did it. She didn't blow up the ship, didn't die in the chamber, didn't let her fear win. Suddenly, she heard something strange, not from the ship, a signal. A voice. This is Fleet Ship Vanguard. We received your beacon. Respond if anyone is alive. Her heart nearly stopped. She tapped her helmet mic. This is Cadet Mira of the Resolute. Commander Hal is alive. We're damaged but holding. Repeat, we're alive, Cadet Mira, the voice said again, calm and professional. Hold position. We're inbound. ETA 25 minutes. Stay strong. She fell to her knees. They were saved. But then another sound echoed through the ship. Not a voice. Thud. Then another. Heavy steps. Metal dragging. Mira froze. Aye, she whispered. Confirm any life signs on board? New movement detected, the voice replied. Unknown life form. Location, Deck 2. She stood up slowly. Deck 2 was near the cryo-locked room. The one where she trapped the scavengers. She activated the video feed. The camera. Shook. One of the scavengers was still alive, only now. It wasn't just a scavenger. The body had changed. Its skin was dark and cracked, glowing faintly. Its eyes burned orange. And it wasn't moving like before. It was faster. It slammed a claw into the wall, breaking metal. Mira's blood ran cold. What is that? The AI paused before answering. Unknown biological enhancement detected. Subject mutated. Behavior aggressive. Can we contain it? She asked. Unlikely. Mira looked down the corridor. She didn't have time to fight something like that. She ran back toward the crew barracks. Commander Hal was already sitting up when she arrived. Gun in hand. I heard it, he said. One of them changed, she replied. I don't know how. Then we finish this, Hal said. She nodded. Together, they moved to the main hallway. The creature was getting closer. Its claws scraped along the walls. It growled low and guttural. Then it charged. Mira aimed her shock lance. Hal fired his plasma pistol. The creature howled but kept coming. Sparks flew. The air filled with smoke. Then Mira spotted the fuel pipe above. She shot it. Boom. A wall of fire roared down the corridor, pushing the creature back. It screamed, twisted, and finally collapsed in the flames. They stood there in silence, breathing hard. You okay? Hal asked. She nodded, even though her arms were shaking. They walked back to the medbay. This time together. 20 minutes later. Bright lights filled the windows. The Vanguard had arrived. Help had come. Mira turned to Hal. He looked at her proudly. You saved me, he said. You saved the ship. She smiled softly. I just made a decision. And it changed everything. The fire had died, but the smoke still filled the corridor. Mira coughed into her arm, stepping over the charred remains of the creature. Its twisted body lay still, the claws frozen in a final grasp toward the ceiling. The ship was quiet again, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that came after violence, the kind that made your heart beat louder in your ears. Commander Hal limped beside her, using the wall for support. We killed it, he said in a hoarse voice. But what the hell was that thing? Mira shook her head, her voice dry. It used to be a scavenger. Now I don't know. The AI said it mutated, changed somehow. Hal leaned back against the wall and slid down slowly until he sat on the floor. We need answers, he muttered. And we need them fast. Mira checked the ship systems. The emergency beacon was still transmitting. Energy levels were now steady after the core reroute, thanks to her risky fix earlier. But they were still alone in space. Fleet, said they. We're 25 minutes out, she said, adjusting her helmet mic. That was 30 minutes ago. Hal looked at her. You think they're coming? I want to believe it, she answered. But something felt wrong. Mira walked to the medbay and pulled out a portable scanner. She waved it over the burned remains of the creature. The readings confused her. The DNA wasn't stable. It shifted, like it was still alive, even though the body was clearly dead. She narrowed her eyes. Whatever hit our ship, it didn't just break things. It changed them. Hal looked up from the floor. Changed them how? It was a pulse weapon. We assumed it was for disabling systems. But what if it was more than that? She said. What if it was testing us? You're saying it was a kind of infection? He asked. She didn't answer right away. I don't know what it was, she finally said. But it didn't feel random. Hal stared at the blackened metal. If that thing had reached the core, it could have destroyed the ship. Maybe worse. Mira sat down across from him. You ever feel like we're part of something bigger? She asked. Always, he said with a weak smile. That's why I joined the fleet. They both laughed, just a little. It didn't last long. The ship trembled slightly. A low hum passed through the floor. Hal's eyes widened. That wasn't us. Mira rushed to the control panel. A new signal blinked on the screen, no ID code, no call sign. Just a moving object, big and fast, coming straight toward them. She pressed the scan button. The AI voice answered flatly. New vessel detected. Size, destroyer class, origin, unknown. Energy signature, similar to disabling pulse. Hal stood. Despite the pain in his leg. That's not fleet, he said. We need to hide. There's nowhere to go, Myra replied. Unless. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. What are you doing? He asked. I'm killing the ship, she said. Hal's eyes widened. What? If we go completely dark, no power, no signal, no heat, they might think we're dead, she said. It's the only chance we have. Hal limped over to her. That's insane. You just fixed the core. I didn't fix it for us, she said. I fixed it to make the beacon strong enough. Fleet has our signal now. They'll come. But if that thing finds us first, it won't matter. He stared at her, then slowly nodded. Coats do it. Mira tapped the sequence. Systems shut down one by one. Lights dimmed. Warm air vanished. The core powered down to idle. The Resolute went silent again. They sat in darkness. The cold returned fast. Hal leaned his head back against the wall. You ever get tired of saving lives? She smiled faintly in the dark. Only when I don't know if it's working. Outside the ship, the large vessel drifted closer. Its hull was dark, smooth, and silent, almost like a shadow moving through space. It stopped just a few hundred meters from the Resolute. No lights. No signal. Then it began scanning. Red waves passed over the Resolute's hull. Sensors swept across every deck. Mira held her breath. Hal whispered, Do you think it knows we're here? I don't know, she said. But don't move. Don't breathe loud. The scans paused over the cryolock chamber. Then passed. The enemy ship hovered a moment longer. Then slowly began to turn away. Mira exhaled, shaking. It's leaving. But before she could finish the thought, an alert flashed silently on the screen. Stealth drone detected. Boarding in progress. Mira cursed under her breath. It left something behind. Hal's hand reached for the sidearm at his belt. How long do we have? He asked. She checked the sensors. Not long. They moved quickly, no time to think. Mira handed Hal a shock baton and picked up her modified lance. I'll slow it down, she said. You stay hidden. Hal gave her a hard look. No, we do this together. She hesitated. Fine, she said. But stay behind me. The drone entered silently through the lower hatch. Its form was sleek black, metal limbs, eyes glowing blue. It moved with deadly grace, scanning each room carefully. It wasn't looking to destroy. It was looking to collect. Scan it? Hal whispered. She checked her reader. No life signs. It's completely synthetic. Good. Means it can be broken. The drone stopped at the central chamber. Then it tilted its head, listening. Myra stepped forward. Hey, metalhead, she said loudly. Looking for someone? The drone turned instantly and fired a net of electrified wires. Mira rolled aside. Just in time. Hal fired his pistol. The shot bounced off the armor but knocked the drone off balance. Mira ran forward, jammed the lance under its arm joint, and activated the charge. Electricity surged. The drone spasmed, then swung at her, catching her across the chest. She flew backward into the wall. Mira! Hal shouted. She coughed, grabbing her side. I'm okay. Hit it again. Hal charged, dodging its next swipe, and jammed the baton into its eye. A sharp crack, then silence. The drone collapsed. Myra stood slowly. That was too close. Hal helped her up. You okay? She nodded, bruised, nothing broken. They dragged the remains of the drone to the cargo bay and locked it in a shielded container. Then they returned to the bridge and slowly reactivated. Life support. Warm air rushed back in. Lights flickered on again. Mira looked out the window. The enemy. Ship was gone. Hal sat down hard in the captain's chair. Next time, he said. Let's not play dead for real. She laughed a little. Next time you take the lead. Suddenly, a new signal flashed on the screen. Fleet Ship Vanguard final approach. Prepare for boarding. Myra's eyes filled with tears. They made it, Hal smiled. Told you. Moments later, a docking clamp latched onto the side of the Resolute. Bright lights filled the corridor. Fleet medics entered first, followed by security. Myra Arden? A voice called. She stood tall, wiping her face. That's me, Commander Hal. He raised his hand. Still alive. Barely. They were. Led off the ship and into the warm, well-lit interior of the Vanguard. As the medics checked them, a young officer stepped forward. You held the ship alone? He asked Myra. She nodded slowly. I did what I had to. The officer looked impressed. You'll want to hear what we found. That pulse weapon, others were hit, but none of them survived. Your ship's the only one still transmitting. Hal turned to Mira, his voice proud. Because of her. The officer nodded. Command wants to speak with you both. Mira looked back at the Resolute, floating in space, a broken ship, a dying flame. But her heart was still beating. She had kept it alive. And now, maybe the war was just beginning. The Resolute hummed softly under the gentle hands of the Vanguard's medics. Mira felt the warmth of the new ship seep into her tired bones, but her mind was far from calm. The rescue had come just in time, but the mystery of the pulse weapon, the mutated scavengers, and that shadowy destroyer still haunted her. Commander Hal sat beside her on a bench in the medical bay. His leg was wrapped tightly, but his eyes were sharp and alert. They want to see us, he said quietly, glancing toward a closed door marked, Command. I'm guessing command officers. Mira nodded, swallowing her fear. She wanted answers more than anything. Who had attacked them? Why was their ship the only one left sending signals? And what did it mean that the pulse weapon didn't just disable, it changed life itself? Before she could think more, the door slid open. Two figures entered the room. They were human-looking, but there was something strange about them. Their skin was paler than normal, and their eyes held a strange shine. One wore a uniform with silver stripes. The other wore a plain dark suit. Cadet Arden, Commander Rourke, the taller officer said, his voice calm but firm. I am Captain Sale, and this is Ambassador Len. We represent the Galactic Council. Mira and Hal exchanged glances. The Galactic Council was a powerful group that oversaw peace and law across many star systems. Their presence was serious. Captain Sale continued. We have been monitoring the area after the pulse weapon was detected. Your ship's distress signal was the only one to reach us. Hal spoke first. Our ship was attacked by an unknown enemy. They disabled us with that pulse, then boarded us. Some of the intruders mutated. We barely survived. Captain Sale nodded gravely. We are aware of the mutation effects. It is why the Council has declared a quarantine zone around this sector. Mira frowned. A quarantine? Are we infected? Ambassador Len stepped forward. No, Cadet, but the pulse weapon carries a biological agent that can alter living beings. We have had reports of entire crews lost to this mutation, turned into creatures similar to what you described. Hal's hand clenched. Why attack? US, what do they want? The enemy is unknown, Sale admitted. They have not made contact with any known civilizations. Their pulse weapon seems designed to sow chaos and fear. Mira's eyes narrowed. So, they want to destroy us without fighting? That is the most likely scenario, Len answered. But their technology is dangerous. We must act swiftly. The captain pulled out a small data pad. We have detected a large fleet moving toward this sector. They use the same pulse technology. If they reach inhabited systems, the damage will be catastrophic. Hal shook his head. Then why wait? Why not strike first? Because, Sale said, we lack information. The Council fears a full-scale war could destroy many worlds before the enemy is stopped. Mira felt a mix of frustration and fear. We're sitting here while they keep coming, she said. What's the plan? Len smiled faintly. The Council has authorized a special mission. You and Commander Rourke will join a team to track the enemy fleet, find their base, stop them. Hal looked at Mira. Looks like the war isn't over. Mira swallowed hard. We can't let this happen again. We have to be ready. Captain Sale nodded. We will provide you with new equipment, trained personnel, and access to the Council's intelligence. Mira stood. When do we leave? Immediately, Len answered. The room emptied quickly, leaving Mira and Hal alone again. Hal sighed. You ready for this? Mira squared her shoulders. I am. After what we've been through, I'm not afraid. They spent the next hours preparing new weapons, advanced armor, faster ships. They met the other members of the mission, a mix of species from across the galaxy, each with their own skills and stories. As the team gathered on the bridge of the new ship, Mira looked out at the dark stars. Somewhere beyond, the enemy waited. Her mind went back to the Resolute, to the cold, the silence, the fear. She thought about the pulse weapon, the mutated scavenger, and the promise she made to herself that no one else would suffer the same fate. Ready, she whispered. Hal placed a hand on her shoulder. Let's end this. The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, racing toward the unknown, but as they vanished into the stars, a hidden ship watched them. Inside, shadowy figures whispered, They have survived. But the game has just begun. The new ship Sentinel hummed steadily as it cut through space toward the enemy fleet's last known coordinates. Mira stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the dark screen ahead. The stars out seemed distant and cold, like silent watchers, waiting for what would come next. Commander Hal stood beside her, his arm in a sling but his expression sharp. The Council's team had briefed them hours ago. The enemy base was hidden in an asteroid field beyond the nebula. The pulse weapon source was there. Mira's heart thumped hard. This was their chance to strike first, to stop the threat. Before more lives were lost, a sudden beep broke the silence. Captain, sensors detect an incoming vessel, the communications officer said. Hal frowned. Unknown? Unknown. No identification. Moving fast. Mira's hand went to her sidearm. The bridge crew tensed. The vessel appeared on the screen, a sleek, black ship, no markings, no lights. Hal's voice was calm but firm. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, shields up. The Sentinel jolted as the unknown ship fired a pulse blast. Alarms blared. Shields holding at 70%. The engineer reported. Mira gripped the console. It's the enemy. Hal's eyes met hers. Ready your lance. We fight now. The bridge shook again. Mira sprinted to the weapons control. Her fingers danced over the panel, locking on. The pulse blast came faster, each one shaking the ships. Core, damage in engineering. The AI warned. The enemy ship closed in. Mira fired the shock lance. A bright arc of electricity shot through space. The enemy ship twisted, but didn't stop, evasive. Hal shouted. The fight was close and brutal. Suddenly, a warning flashed. Boarding pods detected. Prepare for breach. Hal commanded. Mira grabbed her gear and sprinted toward the airlock. The pods hit the Sentinel's hull with a harsh thud. The airlock doors hissed open. Dark figures poured inside, tall, armored, and fast. Mira's heart hammered. She gripped her lance tightly. The corridor was narrow. There was no room to run. The enemy charged. She swung the lance. Electricity crackled. One by one, she knocked them down, but more kept coming. Suddenly, a figure broke through the line, a larger one, faster, stronger. Mira stumbled as it struck her shoulder. Pain exploded through her arm. She fought to stay upright. The creature lunged again. She rolled aside. Narrowly avoiding a crushing blow, she grabbed a metal pipe and swung it. It connected with a sickening crack. The enemy roared but staggered back. Mira gasped for breath. "Hal!" She shouted. From the other side of the ship, his voice came over the comms. "I'm coming." More enemies advanced. Mira backed into a small storage room. She slammed the door and locked it. Her chest burned. The lance buzzed weakly in her hand. Then silence. She pressed her back against the cold wall. Minutes passed like hours. Her breathing slowed. The pain in her shoulder dulled. Then the door shuddered. Heavy footsteps approached. The lock began to grind. She reached for a flare gun. The door burst open. Tall enemy raised a weapon. Mira fired. The flare burst in a red flash. The figure screamed, dropping to the floor. Hal arrived then, his plasma pistol firing rapidly. Together, they pushed through the corridor. "We need to find the control room," Mira said. "Enemy ship?" Hal asked. She shook her head. "They've boarded us." They fought their way through the ship. More enemies appeared. Mira's lance burned brightly in the dark halls. Hal covered her back, his gun blazing. Finally, they reached the bridge. The captain of the enemy boarding party stood there. A cold smile spread across his face. "You've done well to come this far," he said. Hal stepped forward. "This ends here." The enemy captain laughed. "Do you really think you can stop us with just two?" Mira's eyes blazed. "We're not alone." Suddenly, alarms sounded. Reinforcements arrived. The Council's team stormed the enemy ship through another airlock. The tide turned. The enemy faltered. Mira and Hal fought with renewed strength. After a fierce battle, the enemy captain fell. The ship shook violently. "We have to evacuate," the Council officer ordered. Mira grabbed Hal's arm. "Let's go." They raced to the escape pods. Mira looked back at the bridge. The enemy ship exploded in a ball of fire outside. Stars shone bright and clear. Mira smiled through the pain. Had fought and survived. One cadet and one commander. Together, they had made a difference. The silence of space returned like a cold blanket over the ruined corridor. Sparks still fell from the broken ceiling as Cadet Mira stood alone, breathing hard, blood dripping from a cut above her eyebrow. The emergency lights blinked in red. Slow, steady, like a dying heartbeat. Every breath she took fogged the freezing air. Her suit was torn, the heating unit weak. She was cold, tired, but not done. She glanced at the frozen body of Lieutenant Holly behind her. He was still in stasis, protected in the sealed med pod she'd dragged through fire and darkness. But she couldn't move the pod anymore. Her limbs were shaking. Her strength was almost gone. "I need more time," Mira whispered. "Just hold on." A low thump echoed down the corridor. She froze. Then another thump. Metal against metal. She turned toward the sound, heart racing. The lights flickered. Shadows danced on the walls. "They found me," she whispered. Through the broken wall ahead, the enemy moved. Slow, crawling, insect-like creatures. One step forward, tall and thin, with glowing blue eyes. It tilted its head like studying. "Pray." Mira grabbed her broken rifle. She knew it only had one shot left, one charge in the battery. But she wouldn't run. She couldn't. She crouched beside the med pod and pressed her hand to it. "Lieutenant," she said softly, "I made you a promise. I said I'd get you home. I'm going to keep that promise." She turned toward the enemy. "Even if it kills me." The first alien hissed, and the others followed. 6, no 8. They moved fast with clawed feet tapping the metal floor. Mira aimed. "I hope you like surprises," she muttered. She fired. The shot lit the corridor in white light. One alien screeched, its chest bursting open. The others jumped aside, screaming. In that high, strange sound, the rifle clicked. Dead. Mira dropped it. The aliens paused, watching her. Then they charged. She didn't run. She grabbed the emergency fire extinguisher and hurled it at the closest one. It hit with a loud clang, knocking the creature off its feet. Mira spun and ran the other way, into the cold hallway ahead. Her boots slipped on the icy floor. She grabbed a broken rail to stop herself from falling. Her breath came out in fast clouds. The corridor led to the cargo bay. If she could reach the manual door controls, maybe she could trap them inside. Or freeze the whole section. A suicide move, but it would stop them. The creatures were behind her now. Clicking, hissing, gaining. She ran. The cargo door was open, barely, half-jammed. She squeezed through. On the other side, she hit the control panel with her elbow. Nothing. Double quotes. No, come on. She cried. She slammed her fist into the manual. Override. The panel lit up. She hit the red button. The doors began to close. Slowly. Too slowly. The first alien reached the gap. Claws out. Mira kicked it hard in the head. It fell back. Another grabbed her leg, pulling. She screamed and kicked again, slipping loose. The doors shut with a final bang. Silence. She dropped to her knees, breathing hard. Then, boom, the door shook. They were pounding on it. Again. They're not stopping, she whispered. She looked around the cargo bay. No weapons. Just storage crates. Fuel cells, tools. And her eyes widened. An old shuttle pod. Maybe. She ran to it. The cockpit was cracked. Systems dark. She climbed inside, coughing, fingers numb. Please work, she said, pressing buttons. Lights flickered. A low hum answered. The pod's battery was nearly dead. It wouldn't fly far, but maybe enough to launch the med pod into orbit. A distress beacon. A signal. She looked back. The med pod couldn't fit inside. Her eyes stung. I can't fly you out, she whispered to Halle. But I can send you home. She climbed back out, dragging a signal cable from the pod. She wired it to the med pod, carefully. Her hands trembled. The door banged again. The metal groaned. They were almost through. She locked the signal. System link complete. A voice said. She set the pod's launch timer, 60 seconds. You're going, sir, she said. You're going to make it. Then she looked up. She had one last choice. She could go with it, but if the aliens escaped the cargo bay, they'd chase it down. Destroy it in space. She had to stay. Hold them. She pulled out a fuel cell from the crate nearby. Cracked it open. Made a bomb. 30 seconds. She stood near the door, the fuel cell in her arms, shivering. I'm just a cadet, she said aloud. Nobody special. But today, I matter. She looked up at the camera above the door. Tell Earth, she whispered, that I tried. The door burst open. They rushed in. She screamed and through the cell. Everything turned white. 12 hours later. Beacon pulsed in deep space. A scout ship picked it up. Earth's ship, the Valor. Inside, the crew found a single med pod floating in orbit. Lieutenant Halle, in stasis, heart still beating. A signal wired into the pod. A voice message from Cadet Mira Torres. Final report. Lieutenant Halle recovered. Hostile contact confirmed. Enemy forces neutralized. No survivors. Silence. Then another voice came on. A whisper recorded by the damaged pod. Tell Earth that I tried. The screen went dark. Captain Raylan stood quiet for a long time. He turned to his crew. Set course to retrieve the body. We bring her home. She's not just a cadet. She's a hero. No one spoke. But every face showed the same thing. Honor. The battle was over. The silence in space returned like a cold blanket wrapping around the ship's broken hull. Fires had stopped burning. Smoke drifted through the main corridor, mixing with the blood, oil, and ash. The lights were flickering. Systems were barely alive. But the ship had survived, and so had Cadet Mara. She sat on the floor near the command bridge, holding a plasma rifle with trembling hands. Her face was covered in sweat and dirt. Her arm was bleeding, her uniform torn. But her eyes were sharp. Focused. Captain Reyes lay in a med pod beside her, unconscious but stable. His breathing was shallow but steady. The commander had almost died. Almost. If not for Mara. She had fought with everything she had. Against fear. Against pain. Against the enemy. Against the odds. And she had won. But at what cost? Engineering. Team? She whispered into her cracked headset. A voice came back after static. Only 2 of us left, Cadet. We've sealed the core. Life support is running, barely. And the engines? They're dead. We're drifting. Mara looked through the cracked viewing screen. Stars. Cold. Endless. She took a breath and stood up. Her body ached, but she didn't care. We need power. We need comms. If I can reach the long-range array, you'll never make it alone. The voice said, I'm not alone, she said softly, glancing down at Captain Reyes. I have orders to carry out. She grabbed a fresh power cell from a storage crate and walked toward the upper deck. The hallway was dark. Every step echoed. Her shadow moved beside her like a silent ghost. She stopped at the junction and pressed a hand against the panel. It didn't open. Manual override, she muttered. With effort. She pulled the emergency lever. The door creaked open. A gust of cold air hit her. The long-range communications room was on the other side. But something else waited there too. Footsteps. Her hand went to her weapon instantly. Who's there? She called out. No reply. She stepped in. And froze. A figure stood by the console, tall and still. It wasn't human. Mara raised her rifle. Back away from the panel. The figure slowly turned, glowing green eyes. Thin, silvery skin. Armor that shimmered like glass. An alien, the same species that had attacked them. Mara's finger tightened. On the trigger. I wouldn't, the alien said calmly. You speak English? She asked, shocked. I speak all languages. We listen well. What are you doing on my ship? I came to offer a choice. She didn't lower her weapon. You attacked us. Killed our crew. Yes, and you killed ours. War brings death. Then why are you here? To finish the job? No, it said. To warn you. More are coming. Not from us, but from beyond. Something worse. Something we fear. Mara's heart pounded. Why tell me? Because you're the only one who fought like them. It said, like the old ones, the first humans. I'm just a cadet. Not anymore, it said. She didn't understand. You held this ship together. You made choices in seconds that others couldn't make in hours. You chose sacrifice. And courage and fire. Mara frowned. Is this a trick? The alien stepped back. No, I came to deliver a warning and a gift. It pointed to the console. The screens lit up. Long-range comms. Restored, Mara whispered. Yes, the alien nodded. You may call for help now. But know this help may come too late. Unless you rise. Rise for what? To lead, it said. And with that, the alien vanished. A shimmer. A hum. Gone. Mara stood still. Her hands trembled again, but not from fear this time. From responsibility. She pressed the button on the console. Command, this is Cadet Mara Lin of the UNS Valor's Edge. We've survived the attack. Captain Reyes is injured. Crew losses. High. But I have restored long-range comms. We need immediate rescue, and I need to speak with the council. It's urgent. She sent the message, and then she sat down. Minutes passed. Then, a voice came. Through the static, this is command. Cadet Lin, you are now the ranking officer. You are in charge until backup arrives. Do you understand? She swallowed hard. Yes, I understand. Good. We're tracking your signal. Hold position. Reinforcements are on the way. Mara stood up again. She looked around the room. Looked. At the ship. This was hers now. She went to the captain's chair on the bridge. Sat down. It felt too big. But she stayed there. The med pod beside her beeped softly. Reyes was stable, resting. She reached over and gently touched the glass. "You'll be okay," she whispered. "We all will." Suddenly, an alert popped up on the screen. Unidentified signal. Approaching fast. Her eyes widened. Reinforcements? She tapped the panel. The ship's damaged sensors tried to clear the static. One ship, large, not human. Not friendly. The alien had warned her. Something worse was coming, and it was here. Mara stood again. "Engineering. I need a power boost to the shields, whatever you can give. We can give you 20 seconds. I'll take it." She ran to the weapons console. Most were offline. But one plasma turret was still active. One shot. One chance. She aimed at the incoming vessel. The others gathered behind her. 2 engineers, both wounded. 1 med officer. A pilot who couldn't walk but dragged himself to the chair. "You're in charge, Mara," he said. She nodded. "We fight together." The enemy ship got closer. Her finger hovered above the fire. Button. 10 seconds. A voice came through. Unknown, in a strange language. Then, a second voice. A translation. "You are brave, but foolish. Surrender now," she smiled. "Never." And she fired. The screen went white. The ship shook. Explosions. Lights burst. But the turret hit. Its mark. The enemy ship veered off course. Damaged. Retreating. They had won. Again. Barely. The ship groaned under the stress. But it held. Cheers erupted from the crew. Mara collapsed into the chair, exhausted, but alive. Later, when the rescue teams arrived, they found her sitting there, calm, in control, blood on her face, a spark in her eyes. The rescuers looked around in shock. "This was the cadet?" one asked. The lead officer nodded. "No, she's not just a cadet anymore." Mara stood and saluted. "Cadet Mara Lynn," she said. "Commander Reyes will recover. We held the ship. The crew is safe. The mission is still alive." The officer smiled. "You saved them all." Mara looked at the stars through the broken screen. "No," she said softly. "We saved each other, and far out beyond the stars, in places still unknown." Her name was already being whispered. The cadet who rose, the flame that refused to die, and the hero the galaxy didn't see coming.